Hey guys, thank you all for coming. Yeah, so today we're talking about what it takes to go mainstream. We're going to be talking about usability, about design, about security, about all the issues that are facing our community right now and how we can make the blockchain a better space. I'm going to have all the panelists introduce themselves. So here we go.
Hello, hello. I am Taylor Monahan. I am the founder and CEO of MyCrypto. MyCrypto is a wallet. It's a user interface. It allows you to directly interact with the blockchain to hold your Ether or maybe send it or swap it for some tokens or do some other fun things like that. We're non-custodial, meaning that you are holding your own funds, you are interacting with the blockchain, you are sending your money, and it does present some very interesting design and user experience issues that we've been working really hard to overcome.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Cutler. I'm co-founder and CEO of Block Native. We're just introducing our platform here at ETH Denver. It's called Assist, and it's a series of developer tools to help you onboard users into successful transactions on the blockchain. So in about 10 minutes of integrating JavaScript, you can significantly improve the usability of your dApp. You can give your users more confidence as they transact, and you get measurement and analytics out of the back end. This is my 7th startup, depending on how you count. So I've been around this merry-go-round more than once. And it's just super interesting and super exciting to be here. And I just really am happy that usability is coming to the fore of the conversation because it's high time for all of us.
Hey everyone, my name is Tom Tiemann. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Portis. With Portis, we're trying to make friction as minimal as possible when onboarding users. So instead of asking them to install some sort of extension or browser, we give developers an SDK, and with just 2 lines of code, you get a Web3 provider that's bundled inside the application. So your users don't have, they get an email and a password flow, which is familiar, but we're non-custodial. We use end-to-end encryption, which means that once they encrypt the wallet on their device, we only store the encrypted wallet, so that way they can access it from each one of their devices easily, while still maintaining absolute control over their device, over their wallet. And yeah, as Matt said, it's great that suddenly usability is getting the attention that it deserves, and we're constantly dealing with, like Taylor said, they own the private keys, but that's the challenge of making that simple.
Hi, my name is Sean Lee. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Fortmatic. What we have built is a way for developers to write Web3 dApps without browser extensions or mobile wallets. And we are custodial, and the way we secure it is very similar to how some of the big exchanges secure it, using hardware security modules. And a way for our users to sign up is through a phone number, and we'll send them a security code to create a wallet. What we want to focus on is giving users the simplest possible way to start, and then provide more optionality later once the users know more about their own needs. And before starting Fortmatic, I was the product and design lead at a company called Docker. One of the things we made is to make really complex technologies more accessible to people, and kind of using that experience contributing to how we can make blockchain more mainstream as well.
God, I'm not as impressive anymore. My name is Jeffrey Veer. I'm COO at a blockchain technology agency based here in Denver. We're not a startup. We actually work alongside a lot of these companies to help evolve their user experience and actually launch their product in a product market fit type of way.
Awesome. Well, I have one question that I want to ask all you guys, and I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to answer, and that'll kind of set the stage, and we'll get the conversation started from there. So, Taylor, what is the biggest thing stopping dApps from going mainstream in our current environment?
Everything. I mean, it's such a hard question because there's so many hurdles for a user coming off the street to be able to successfully interact with the dApp. And I think that So fiat onboarding is the biggest one. I have fiat in my actual physical wallet in my back pocket. How do I get that into crypto? And so I'm gonna just say the on-ramp in general is the hardest thing, because if you're developing a dApp with an actual use case where a user, you're trying to sell this user on whatever your application does, whatever value it provides, to sell them on this idea and then backtrack and be like, oh, but by the way, you need to first go register on an exchange and use your fiat and give them your passport and then get your ether and then transfer it into this token and then put it in this other wallet called MetaMask and then hook the MetaMask into our dApp, and then we can finally allow you to, I don't know, browse a decentralized version of Airbnb to get that hotel that you wanted. Like, it's just not going to work. So the whole onboarding process, we have to figure out how to streamline it.
Agreed. My background is in enterprise design transformations, and one of the things we teach large organizations is technology changes, but core human needs don't. And so what's happening right now is users need to understand what the hell is going on. Users need to have a sense of confidence, a sense of security, and they don't. And the reason is actually pretty straightforward. How many of you have read either the Bitcoin white paper or the Ethereum white paper? Okay, how many times does the word user appear in either of those white papers? And the thing is like, why would you even ask that question? And it's because the user isn't a core consideration to these documents. So the answer, by the way, is 2 for the Bitcoin white paper and 21 for the Ethereum white paper. But there's 0 mention in any of them of the word onboard, of the word usability, or of the word experience. They just assume the user magically appears. Okay? And we all know that doesn't happen, right? And so the opportunity and the need to go mainstream is to help the users overcome this difficult transition from the traditional world, the fiat world, to the crypto world. And the truth is, the crypto world is pretty hard. And so we all, as an industry, have a responsibility to our users to be empathetic, and that's what I think we're here to talk about.
So I think when we're talking about blockchain, there are some inherent problems which are making things difficult for users. One of them is the whole concept of key management, of being responsible for your entity, for your funds, and like if you forgot your password in the case of Portis, or if you're in the case of MetaMask lost your device, then everything is gone, and that's something which is very difficult. And I think that also ties into the second problem, which is the education. Like, where do we find the line between what we want to educate the user about and explain to them that this is decentralized, or we want to kind of hide that away from him and try to solve that problem for him. And the dApps themselves, they also kind of have to understand that users don't really care about blockchain and decentralization, and that's not a value for them. They care about what they can do with your dApp. And we need to see, as developers of dApps, how we don't talk about that. We need to talk about the value they get while still making sure that they enjoy the benefits of decentralization.
What I think that's preventing the adoption is 2 things. One is progressive disclosure. I feel like a lot of experience out there kind of throws everything at the user right away, which is like really overwhelming for end users. And I think the right way is through progressive disclosure by offering a very familiar experience to what the users are used to in the Web 2 world, and then gradually guide them through the process of understanding the blockchain and its advantages, and eventually build solutions that cater to these users, just from their feedback, right? And the second thing is about trust. The reason we trust banks to some extent is that when someone transfers money out, the bank guarantees you that you'll get it back, maybe after a while. And it's in fact that property that makes a lot of users feel very safe dealing with it, or like chargebacks when there's something wrong with the credit card. And the immutability of the blockchain really makes user very scared when the transaction is final. But that also is important for a specific kind of applications, like let's say Twitter donations, right? You don't want people to donate and then they'll take it back. So we have to really find the use cases that's really specific and tackle those problems in a way that is the user is very familiar with. And I think once we resolve these two problems, it'll be a really good start to get mainstream adoption.
I shouldn't have said at the end. That was like all of mine. Education is huge, but that's an obvious one, I think, right? Education's not good or not good enough. I'll step like a degree higher than everyone else. I don't think that people see the value in it very well, and I think that makes total sense. I don't think it is valuable yet to enough people. So that's like the biggest barrier for dApps. I don't think that it's valuable enough to enough people. But the one I think that'll piggyback on and really resonates with me is we don't have variable on-ramps, meaning people should be able to come in and choose the degree to which they want to interact with blockchains, to which they want to interact with their own data and the security around it. So we should be creating an on-ramp solution that starts with custodianship and leads to, seeds in your fire safe in your closet. And all the education that comes along with that, and the education ramps up, along the vector with that more heavy use of the value proposition of blockchains, which is ownership of all your things. So I think it's a combination of all those things, but I think we need more variable on-ramps. People are making decisions, they're sticking to them, and they're segregating a large portion of the market, which is already really tiny.
And I'll start with you, Jeff, since we'll just mix it up a little bit.
Thank
So
you.
what are some of the actionable things we can do right now to tackle some of these problems or fix them?
Yeah, so I guess I'll just elaborate on that last notion maybe. So, and I was actually having a really awesome conversation this past week. I did a vacation with someone who works with large institutional money. And I think the conclusion we came to at the end of the week was, I think the solution is like tons of institutional money and just like insurance for custodianship, which is like breaks the heart of every blockchainer in the world, right? But if you think about it, if you really want to have on-ramps, if you want to on-ramp the next 80% of people, let's just treat it like a bank. But after you've treated them like a bank, you're going to give them all of the ways to step away from the bank. And with large projects and products like Coinbase, and I think they're great because they've onboarded people, but you have to take them through the value proposition of the blockchain, and we haven't done that yet. So I think that's the biggest next two steps, is someone to fund the on-ramp of users, and it's probably going to be institutional money, sorry again, but then having the commitment of who's getting the institutional money to use it towards the betterment of educating users away from custodian solutions. And honestly, they have to be able to make the decision that's best for them. Some people are going to say the value for me is to never touch this stuff. I don't want it. Other people, they're going to want it to disappear. And they're going to want to have that control. And I think we need to offer all those solutions at the same time.
I think for me is first offering variety, and second, break monopoly. So what I mean is, because the space is so early, we need to offer a variety of solutions to test the market, to see what catches on, what kind of experience the users really resonate with, and then therefore to find a direction that we need. And in my experience, if it's as easy as possible, it's easier to figure out, right? If it's not good enough, then it's an easier change rather than kind of starting really complicated and then going towards easy, because there's a lot of noise and distraction in your product. And the other thing, like regarding custodianship and becoming a bank, the key here with decentralization is actually breaking monopolies. Like, say if there's suddenly many more custodians or crypto banks that operates better than actual banks, then it's really good for the world to break these kind of monopolies or credit card companies. And then I think that's the whole goal of the movement is not, centralized versus decentralized. It's more like how can we provide a better infrastructure to break monopolies.
So I agree with the whole concept of variety, and we're going to see a lot of solutions. But one of the things which I think is also great, and we're going to see rise, is the interoperability between all those different solutions. You see a lot of interesting ways to tackle different problems, and I feel that we're seeing more and more integrations between all those different solutions. And my hope is that we're going to see, while this perfect storm of different solutions is brewing, we're going to see that killer dApp, which may have already tried to exist, but there was just not the right tool set out there for user experience and solutions that will allow it to actually, take hold out there. So I'm really hoping that I don't want to give any timelines, but I'm really hoping that very soon we're going to see all those solutions come together and that killer dApp can finally grow, and we're going to see this crypto kitty, but for not just for people who love Ethereum, people who love crypto, but for the average person, like the Uber of crypto, of blockchain, and something that everybody is like, oh, I gotta use that, and it's pretty simple. I just go here, 2 clicks, and it works. So I'm really hoping we're gonna be seeing something like that, this bundling together of things.
So I mentioned I have done 7 startups. My first startup was an internet company in 1994. So I've earned every one of these gray hairs. And does anyone remember what the internet was like in 1994? Many of you may not have been alive. There's some gray hairs like me back there. But there was a lot of new to it, which was like get online and figure this out. But it was basically hypertext and images, links. That was sort of it. It was so small, you didn't even need a search engine. Yahoo was like a manually curated index of links that were categorized, right? So the whole industry fit into the palm of your hand, and you could sort of navigate it, right? It was weird and different, but in many ways simple. Now compare that to the state of the blockchain today. Like, the whole industry fits into the palm of your hand, awesome, but we talk about, hey, with this technology you can get into a credit default position, into a index stable coin, using a DAO, and you can do that on an atomic swap basis. Like, wait, what? And so for the typical new user, it's just super overwhelming, right? And what we need, to everyone's point, is a variety of experiences, but a variety of experiences that enable new users to get on board gradually, to interact with confidence, to do things like maybe on testnet, so there's not real currency involved. They can play with some monopoly money for a while and get a hang of it, and they can begin to wrap their minds around some of the basic ideas of blockchain. When I explain, I'm a chain-splainer at parties. If someone gets cornered in a party and I start ranting about this, is I say, look, in the real world, regular world, if I want to give you $20, I take $20 out of my wallet, and then I give it to you, and then it goes into your wallet, right? Not one word I said is possible on the blockchain. On the blockchain, my wallet will never contain $20. It will never be in transit to you, and it will never be inside your wallet. And they go, wait, what? And I go, yeah, let's talk, right? So these sorts of things where we're really empathetic to users is what we need in order to get across to the other side. So some of these more sophisticated experiences that we're all hyped about are ready to be embraced. And that's why we're building what we're building.
Yeah, these have been really fantastic. It is hard to go last. So I think that in terms of really, truly actionable items, I think that we need to dream big, right? Which is in this industry very easy to do. I think everyone has this big grand vision and the reasons that they got into the blockchain and they got interested in this. So I don't think that there's any lacking in dreaming big. I think that what is maybe lacking a little bit is really focused, actionable tasks, bite-sized pieces, bite-sized problems that we can solve. And so I could list about a bazillion of them, or I could say, look around at the apps that you are using and the points of interaction that you're interacting with or that you're building, and try to figure out one little tiny improvement that will have just a tiny positive effect. And if everyone building and everyone using these products does this, everything will gradually be better and easier, whether that's the education becoming clearer, whether that's the product, like, eliminating a step or combining 2 steps into one. And over time, with these very little increments, we will make actually huge strides. And that's what my team hates me for this, but I literally, I'll be using our product and I'll just be like, this error message sucks. Like, someone go fix it. And those little things, you think that they don't have a huge difference, but if every single week you fix one of your error messages and make it a little bit clearer, or you edit that support article, or you improve that icon, or whatever it is, over time, it gets remarkably better, and you even sort of forget what the new user is experiencing. And I have people come up to me and go, oh, it's so easy, it's so clear, I got this concept, where originally, that was the #1 issue. So that's my 2 cents on the matter.
And talking with progressive disclosures and variable on-ramps, how do you guys feel? What do we think about, can you have usability without having comprehension? Do you need to understand how the blockchain works to be able to use it? Who wants to start?
Maybe I'll start. So.
Yeah.
So we'll spice it up. So it'll go like this or something. Okay, so if I'm taking that for Portis, for instance, from our experience, so one of the hardest things that we have is the fact that because we do end-to-end encryption and the wallet is encrypted with the user's password, kind of like LastPass or 1Password, we're trying to make the user understand that if they lose their password, everything is gone. And that's a barrier. Most people are not used to that. Even if with products like LastPass or 1Password, those are still kind of, tech-savvy products. The average user doesn't really use those kind of things. So, and this whole thing, this whole concept that your password is everything, it hides something much bigger, which is the whole key management thing, that you're the owner of it. So it's a hard line to find between, I want to explain this to you. I don't want to explain why. If you lose it, you lose everything, because that's just diving into a rabbit hole which doesn't really, you don't really care about. So we're trying to keep it to a level which they can understand, which is, look, if you lose this, you're the only one who knows this password and we can't help you recover it. Now, that's not a nice thing to say to a user, and we're trying to see additional ways of recovery which are nicer. But we don't want to dive into why this is. I'm not going to explain end-to-end encryption to you, and I'm just trying to keep it on a level which is need-to-know basis sort of way. So we're not, for instance, gas fees. We're not letting you even deal with gas fees. We're choosing the optimal gas fee. We're not really sure if that's the right way to go, and we're experimenting, but it's a fine line to find. But it's somewhere in the middle. That's what I think.
Cool. So I think, in my opinion, it's very difficult to know whether we need to do that now, because I feel like the real world needs to connect more with the blockchain first for hiding it away to happen. I think most users these days that are brought into the ecosystem is already exposed to it. And there are pains and friction that they experience. So we try to accommodate to the users that are already in the ecosystem. And as we explore our boundaries in how we can get the real world connected in a physical way with the blockchain, then we can have more use cases to optimize for and make it easier for real mainstream users. So I think it's a step-by-step process, like an exploration process that needs to start somewhere.
Yeah, so it's definitely a balance, and there's certain things that you can absolutely hide away and abstract away, and if the user never really has to see it, then they don't need to understand it. They don't even know that it needs to exist, and that's definitely a positive with a lot of these concepts. However, like the password thing that you were talking about is such a perfect example of this. We deal with the exact same thing. I have found that having the user understand the why behind it actually really increases their overall understanding. And so, with my crypto, I'm sure most of you are familiar with our 10-page onboarding modal that you couldn't close out of, and the buttons hopped all around. And it was very specifically designed to try to bash the users over the head about their private keys. And it was a quick fix when everything was on fire, and it was not ideal. But we did find that before this modal and before these tons of these warnings were in place, people didn't understand why they needed to keep their private key safe or why they couldn't forget their password. We just told them over and over and over again, don't forget your password, don't lose your password, back up your key, back up your key, back up your key. And we found that we actually had a lot more luck and success with people backing up their key if they understood this key is the access to all of your funds. And we are not a bank. We cannot recover this. We cannot return this. We cannot get it back. And if they understood fundamentally why our product was different than a bank or different than their Facebook account, then they had a better chance of backing up and properly storing their private key. Now, in the long term, would it be more ideal to just eliminate the private key from the picture? Probably. But in the short term, like I said, quick fixes, and iterating. By the way, our onboarding modal is now 4 pages, and the buttons don't hop around. So we're making leaps and bounds here. But seriously, it's definitely a balance. And if you are struggling with users not doing something that you need them to do, I would definitely recommend explaining, even if it takes a little bit of time, explaining the why behind these decisions and behind these concepts.
Me first, Matt. Matt can tell you all about error messages. You guys should talk about it. The whole thing breaks at private keys. Is everyone cool with that? I feel like that's kind of the short answer. It all breaks to private keys. If you're initiated, the next set of initiated people who are uninitiated is going to be a long way out. So we're going to have different solutions in the interim. I think a lot of it's language. So using the word private keys, can we change that word? Can we change these words to be more assimilated to the other words we're using today with passwords and things like that? We can. Unfortunately, you shroud a lot of the severity when you change language, so that's the dilemma that we live in the communication design world. I don't think there's a solve to this right now. Sorry. But I think there's other things you can do. When someone comes to me and they say, Jeff, teach me about cryptocurrency, I say download a password manager. Download OnePass, something like that. Download a two-factor authentication application. And I want you to get really familiarized with putting one more layer of security in your life, and it starts to change the way you think, right? It starts to put these new vectors in front of you, which I think are really awesome. And it lends them a little bit further down to wanting to take on little bits, like those little tiny wins. And ultimately, you'll get them to a place where you can educate them through the process of private keys and really communicating the severity. Maybe 3 or 4 confirmation modals. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Do you have a fire safe? This mnemonic is important. But I don't think there's a solve. I think that the solve is actually the earlier steps of teaching them the pretty ubiquitous two-factor or multi-factor authentication things we're doing every day, and people are starting to get the hang of.
The very worst thing to happen to blockchain usability was, what are you thinking? Right? I would say it's really easy. It was the massive appreciation of cryptocurrency value. Because what that did was drive a huge wave of press and media, which drove a huge wave of users who never should have shown up this early in the process, right? And we have this tendency as an industry to think we got to solve all the problems at once, and we got to get all the way to 6 billion people, 7 billion people onboarded tomorrow, right? And that's not true at all. We have a core nucleus of people who are generally clueful, and we need to get to the next layer of the onion, and they will educate the next layer. So the opportunity that we have is to be much more deliberate as we move forward. What's the best thing to happen to blockchain usability? The collapse in cryptocurrency prices, right? Hey, a whole lot of folks are a lot less interested in this. Great, right? wow, that's so much better for all of us up here. Because what's happening right now is there's a huge amount of burden on you, the dApp developer. Figure this all out, educate them, train this, do this, test this, check that, make sure they don't do anything one of these, get this language right, internationalize, localize, accessibility. And you're like, look, I'm just trying to get started here. I'm doing hello world. And that's why we're building what we're building at Block Native, because there's a whole bunch of these problems you can just download and get for free, right? And I think across all of the vendors that are up here, all the tools that we're doing, we're all basically focused on the same set of problems, usability and accessibility, and we're all attacking it in different angles. And what's super amazing is they're all viable, they're all interesting, and we have way more in common than anything else. So if you're out there building right now, like, by all means, use the tools that are at your disposal. We all have whole development teams that are working on this. We have expertise for it. So it's a super interesting time to be building in the space, and don't feel like you have to solve it all at once, okay?
Well, thank you guys so much. We're out of time, so we'll wrap things up. But thank you all for coming, and thank you all guys for speaking. That was amazing.